Kentucky basketball is off and running with the 2026 recruiting class, and the Cats just finished up a visit with one of the highest risers in next season's cycle.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be discussing a couple of different players that the Wildcats have been in contact with. Christian Collins, a five-star prospect in next year's cycle. What do we know about him, as well as his recent visit? Some very positive stuff there. Also, a guard that Kentucky has contacted in the transfer portal. Haven't gotten the chance to talk about him yet on the show. This happened a few days ago, but is this really something Kentucky fans should be engaging with? And then to wrap up the show, possibly some new numbers here for Kentucky's newcomers. Today's episode, thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everybody out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, would greatly appreciate it if you did so. If you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. And I've been asking you guys this here over the past couple of episodes, but if you're on Spotify, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the show. Go and leave it a 5-star rating. I would greatly appreciate it if you did that as well. Trying to see what you guys are doing out there on Spotify, because I'm not going to lie, that's where I usually listen to most of my shows. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money, and you can use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So Christian Collins, a 5-star 6'8" wing, has been visited by Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken, while Jason Hart and company were out in California for, I believe, the most recent Nike EYBL circuit. Either that or they were just out there visiting various prospects. They went and took a visit with Christian Collins. And in case you don't know, this kid's one of the highest risers here in the upcoming cycle, 6'8", 200 pounds, listed at power forward. I think he could play the 3 if he continues to improve his handling, which is very solid for what he is positionally. He's out of St. John Bosco School out in Bellflower, California. It's where he spent his last season. Number 3 player overall nationally, according to 24/7 Sports Raw player ratings. Number 5 in the composite, number 1 power forward in the country, and the number 3 player out of the state of California. I believe Texas and Duke are 2 other teams that have been on him recently. We'll continue to monitor this kid's recruitment pretty heavily because, well, Kentucky seems to be in a pretty good position off the jump. He really does like Mark Pope, at least that's what it seems. Based on interviews that he's had. Jamie Shaw of On3 recently put out an article breaking down what Collins has heard from teams like Oregon, Kentucky, Cal, Arizona, and here's what he had to say about Kentucky. Jason Hart's there, and that's my guy. I talked to him a good bit. Coach Pope is hilarious. He's really funny. I really like their how they play their play style. They have a lot of long, versatile players on the wing, and they like to play through them. Sounds pretty perfect to me. And he was actually asked later on in the article, kind of what are you looking for in your next school? He said, I'm looking for somewhere where I can really develop as fast as possible, get me ready for the next level. I want to go somewhere that's like a family, home away from home. Really, I want to go somewhere where I'm comfortable, looking for a program where they play through their wings. I feel like that is my position for college in the NBA, if that is what God has planned for me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and wrap it in blue and white. Doesn't really sound like Christian Collins here is looking for anything that Kentucky doesn't offer. I think that Mark Pope obviously is a phenomenal player around his coaches. Really, I think creates a family-like environment. Definitely did with this past year's squad. And on top of that, there's literally, this is an objective fact. You can't argue with it. There is literally not a single program in the country better. If you want to go to the NBA after 1 year, there's not a single program in the country that's better for you than Kentucky. You can't name a single program that has put more kids in the NBA than the Wildcats have, especially as of late. Christian Collins would be perfect. We can get you ready for the league. We can make you a star here. You're going to be seen, and we're going to pay you well. And on top of that, system's going to be pretty friendly, and the people around you are going to love you and support you. The interesting story about Christian Collins is that he went from unranked to a top 3 player in just a few months. I believe it was like 3 months where he was on these different circuits, hadn't really been seen in his high school, and then all of a sudden just took off, and there's a reason why. So let's talk about the positives first here. He can work outside in. He's got a very versatile game. He's got the ability to score at all three levels. You can see him knock down jumpers both in the mid-range and from beyond the arc. You can see him work towards the rim. He's got a little bit of a post-up game despite only being 200 pounds. He's got a bouncy, light vibe to the way that he plays on the floor. He's a very airy type player. We can just get up and get down with ease. Very fluid, very smooth, super athletic, and then on top of that, he's got a very long frame. I think that's kind of why he plays so bouncy and so light. He's kind of able to get to his spots pretty easily without really having to move a ton of weight there. It's not the most physical player you'll see. It's a very I think finesse type player you're getting here in Christian Collins. And on top of this, I think he's also got some physicality and good work ethic that he can build on as he adds more strength. He's a solid rebounder already. The stats show that. Tape shows that. He's got great work around the rim. But the negatives here, I think the first big thing you have to point out is that he needs to add a lot more strength. Obviously, he's going to be able to do this over his final senior season and then through his offseason before he goes to whatever college that he ends up choosing. His outside shooting, I think, could use some work. Statistically, it's not the best. I think his form and his base could use a little bit of improvement. Of course, that's coming from me, who probably is not the best shooter on the planet, but still, I know what a good jump shot looks like and what one doesn't. I think he could improve on in that area. He's also not the most efficient player statistically, although he gets really good outings sometimes, and I think he had a couple of recently during the EYBL circuit in Arizona, and that's actually where I want to go to next here, because High Level Hoops, who put out a video on YouTube, I think breaking down a game or two from his circuit in Arizona, put out this article on Twitter, and I wanted to read through some of the things that High Level Hoops had to say about this kid. First session of the 2025 Nike EYBL circuit in Mesa, Arizona brought out the best in high school talent, and Christian Collins, the 6'8" forward out of St. John Bosco, delivered one of the most well-rounded performances of the weekend. Playing for Team Why Not, Collins averaged 15.7 points, 10 rebounds, and made his presence felt on both ends of the floor. Collins isn't just a scorer. He's a three-level threat who plays within the flow of the offense. He showed the ability to score in a variety of ways, whether it was knocking down mid-range jumpers, attacking off the dribble, or finishing through contact in the paint. I will say here to pause real quick, I think finishing through contact is something he's going to have to improve on, because it's just going to get more difficult when he gets to college. His 28-point outburst against New York Lightning was a perfect example in efficient shooting, 8 of 12 from the field, strong decision-making, and control under pressure. Collins is a consistent three-point shooter, and his ability to knock down shots from deep adds another dynamic element to his already diverse offensive game. More importantly, he consistently moved well without the ball, timing baseline cuts, finding gaps in the defense, and capitalizing on dump-offs and transition opportunities. I think that is absolutely true whenever you go and watch this kid. He's constantly moving, it feels like, without the ball in his hands if he's not looking for a post-up down low. The kid is very active on the offensive end. He's also active on the glass. Where Collins really separated himself from other prospects was his work on the boards and the defensive effort. Averaging 10 rebounds per game, he was relentless and chasing down misses on both ends. He boxed out with physicality, tracked long rebounds, and secured second chance points with well-timed putbacks. Defensively, he brings switchable versatility, guarding wings and forwards alike. His foot speed and length allowed him to hedge ball screens, recover, and contest shots without fouling. While not a primary rim protector, his verticality and timing altered plenty of attempts in the paint, which is exactly what you're looking for. You don't need to necessarily get a ton of blocks. You need to be able to alter shot attempts. We've preached that on this show for what is going on, I think, 3 years now. Work ethic and consistency is how High Level Hoops rounds out this article. What makes Collins truly stand out is his work ethic and consistency. Whether it's on offense or defense, he consistently plays with intensity and purpose. He's always moving, whether it's cutting to the basket, spacing the floor, or tracking down loose balls. Collins' ability to stay engaged in every phase of the game, coupled with his relentless pursuit of improvement, makes him a player that can be relied upon in clutch moments. His ability to play both ends of the floor with such focus sets him apart as a well-rounded and dependable asset. This would be a kid that is 1,000% worth picking up to be not just a part of an offense or a team in 2026, but to be somebody that can absolutely lead that squad. There's a reason he's risen in the ranks. The kid's just such a fluid, versatile, high ceiling pick. High floor, I would say as well, just because of how good of an athlete he is. I would be hard-pressed, despite some of his inefficiency troubles at various spots, I would be hard-pressed to say there's a better spot in the country other than Kentucky. He talked about how he wants to develop quickly. He talked about how he likes Mark Pope. He wants to be able to get to the NBA pretty quickly. I'm trying to find here real quick. So yeah, here's some more statistics here for Nike EYBL. So he did average 15.7 and 10 and 1.7 assists per contest. But to talk about the efficiency again real quick, 44.2% from the field, 25% from three. He did shoot 88.9% from the charity stripe across 3 games and the debut season. The kid can shoot. He only shot 30% from deep, and I'm pulling this up here on Max Preps. Yeah, 45% from the floor during his junior year in varsity again at St. John's Bosco. I think that you can improve this with the way that he would operate in Pope's offense. I also think you would make him a little bit more of a distributor. I think that's something that he would be able to show, is the ability to pass and to look for teammates. I'm not saying that he doesn't do that now. I'm just saying it's not necessarily something that they call upon him to do, or at least it's not seen in his tape. I like it. I think that he would be a great pickup, and I'm very interested to see kind of where Kentucky goes with this, because it does kind of play a stark contrast to what everybody said whenever Pope was hired, is that he can't recruit, he can't get these high-end athletes. Well, looky here. It's an athlete, the top 3 player that Mark Pope seems to really like him. The kid seems to like him as well. Of course, now that I've spoken about this player, apparently half my comment section believes that we're not going to get this player now that I've talked about him. I'd highly encourage you guys to go check out the last several years of this show and give me a report on the kids that we ended up actually getting, and kind of see what your opinion is after watching me talk about them and knowing that we already landed them, including Malachi Marino and Jasper Johnson, I might add. I'd love to hear what the comment section says about that. All right, we're going to continue along here, talk about Ryan Forrest, a shot chucker. We'll get to him in just a second. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, well, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's super easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's complete financial command center over all of your accounts. You can track your investments, accounts, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and actually start building wealth. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You can use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, continuing along here on the Wednesday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. I really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Let me know what you think about Christian Collins. This is a kid that I would love to have on the roster in 2 seasons. Of course, now we're looking at a transfer portal kid that might be added this year. This kid, I had to check this real quick before I hopped on. He has not committed to a school yet, but I wanted this guy to be on your radar in case somehow Kentucky miraculously picks him up. So Ryan Forrest is a 6'4" sophomore guard out of North Carolina A&T, previously played at Northwestern State as a freshman, transferred to North Carolina A&T, where he averaged 19.1 points, 3.7 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.1 steals per game, playing 32.6 minutes per contest. You may look at those numbers and go, hey, that's pretty good. This is a 6'4" guard that's averaging over 19 points while doing some other positive things on the floor. It's pretty good. And then you start to kind of dig into some of the other statistics, like the fact that this kid only shoots 39% from the floor and 24.7% from three. And you start to look a little further and you realize, oh, this kid is taking, get ready, 17 shots per game. Only 4 of those coming from beyond the arc, which means he is chucking inside the arc. I mean, the kid is chucking. He's also not a good free throw shooter either, 63.7%. Despite being a 6'4" guard and shooting so much, this kid can't put the ball in the hole consistently. 94.6 offensive rating. Whenever I saw that on that one big YouTube channel that puts out all those different highlight reels of the transfer portal kids, when I saw the 94.6 offensive rating, I immediately paused the video and went straight to Sports Reference to see what this kid's stats were. 31.7% usage rate. A&T was trying to kill this kid. They were saying, hey man, chuck all the shots you want, do everything for our offense. You're getting those 19 points per game in an extremely inefficient manner. He shot 55% at the rim, which is for a guard. He shot 25% at the right baseline, which is where he took a lot of his shots, 23% from left break threes, 27% from right break threes, and he's both poor in catch and shoot and off the dribble situations. He shot both 38% effective field goal percentage for both catch and shoot and off the dribble. Both those numbers are in the 21st percentile. This kid, if you go and watch his tape, chucking from everywhere. There's not a specific spot that I could point to outside of maybe talking about what he's doing on the right baseline, where I'm like, yeah, this is a spot that he goes to and he can be effective. Kid was chucking from the left wing. Kid was chucking from the right wing. Kid was chucking from everywhere in the mid-range. Kid was chucking at the rim. He's chucking at the paint. He's taking step backs. He's going through. He's playing off of screens. He's playing in ISO. He's in the 62nd percentile of isolation scores. He was really ineffective in transition because he got out of control at times. This kid was chucking up shots. 17 was his average, by the way. 17 shots a game was his average. Could Mark Pope take this kid in and do wonders on his efficiency? Absolutely, he could make him into a solid role player. But if you listened actually recently to John Rothstein's interview with CBS and Mark Pope, Pope talked about how actually we're not done with the roster. We've still got a couple more pieces that we could potentially add. We're scouring the globe for kids that we could add that could either be redshirt or bench pieces. It's not over yet, guys. We got 3 scholarships to play with. Let's hold off on saying the roster is done just yet. Maybe you get the guy from Miami that we talked about yesterday. Maybe you get a guy like Forrest. But here's the thing. Ryan Forrest would not come in day one and be somebody that Kentucky even threw into the rotation consistently because of how bad he was with his shot selection and shooting. On top of that, he had a 113.1 defensive rating. So the kid's got a lot of things to work on. He's got the size, he's got the tools, he's got a little bit of athleticism to boot. I say a little bit. He's way more athletic than somebody like me. No duh, but relative to what you want to get in the SEC, you get what I'm saying there? Ryan Forrest would be an ad that I would take. He's not somebody that I would play consistently over anybody in this rotation right now. He would have to be a depth piece, and frankly, I think a kid that's averaging 19 a game at his previous school, regardless of where it was, whether it's Illinois State or North Carolina A&T or what have you, doesn't really matter. You're not going to be looking for a 13th man at a school like Kentucky. You're looking to go play somewhere and get some legitimate time. We'll see how this recruitment ends up. I'm probably not going to put a ton of chips on the table and say Kentucky's really going after this kid. But again, we'll see what happens. So let me know what you think there. Ryan Forrest is not somebody that really excites me, but we move. The final thing I wanted to talk about here today were some confirmed numbers for Kentucky basketball next season. This is via Kentucky Hoops IG on Twitter. He's got 25K over on Instagram as well. I believe this has been confirmed. If this has not been confirmed, then we will just talk about it again whenever it actually is. But we've got some confirmed numbers for next season, and we've got some guys that, according to Kentucky Hoops, he's just kind of projecting here maybe what will happen with these kids and what numbers they will take. So Otega Owe will be 00 if he comes back. Denzel Aberdeen will play as number 1. Cam Williams will play as number 3. And then Andrea Jelovic will play, and this is the most interesting one to me, as number 4. Did not expect Jelovic to be taking 4. So you got 00, 1, 3, and 4 there. Cam Williams playing 3, of course. Aberdeen switching from, I believe he was 10 or 11 at his previous school to number 1, with, of course, number 10 being Brandon Garrison. Colin Chandler will be number 5. Trent Noah will be number 9 again. And then Garrison, again, like I said, will be number 10. So Aberdeen, Williams, and Jelovic, 1, 3, and 4. Projected remaining numbers for Kentucky Hoops. Jalen Lowe being 15, Mo Diabate being 23, Jaden Quaintance being number 21, Jasper Johnson being number 2, and Marino being number 24. All that seems to make sense to me. I will be curious to see what Diabate ends up picking. I think he was wearing number 23 during photos that they took recently. I might be mistaken. We will see what happens, but Jelovic being 4 I think is fun. I think that Diabate being 23 is fun, considering we haven't had a solid 23 in quite some time. I just wanted to give you guys a brief update on that because I thought it was kind of cool. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.